Welcome, everybody. My name is Maralee Burnett, and I am back again with your astro lesson for the week of February 17th, 2025. And I apologize, I have been down with a cold, so this is coming out late, and you will not see me on the screen, and that's for your own good, trust me. So we are going to have kind of a light week as far as heavy transits go, which we all deserve a bit of a break. So I think that that's a good thing, but it's just a slight break, but we still will break it all down. Of course, if you're new to my channel, I'd love it if you would click on subscribe. I love your comments. I appreciate your likes, and I really appreciate you sharing this information with someone who you think will benefit from it. You can also go out to my website, MaraleeBurnett.com. Join me there, and that way you get access to all of my written content as well, which just provides even a bigger view of everything that's going on in more detail, such as the breakdown of each month and each new moon and full moon. And I think I am current through the month of May out there. So go ahead and check out that information, join my website. And of course, if you want to know even more, consider booking a session with me, especially as we are about to head into crazy eclipse season. And I'm telling you, I may just come back and do another video tutorial about March and everything that's going on in the month ahead, because we have a Venus retrograde, a Mercury retrograde, and an eclipse. And both Venus and Mercury are traveling over the eclipse point and back and forth. So we have this point of the eclipse, which is 9 degrees of Aries. So if you have any planets at 9 degrees of Aries, trust me, you're going to want to prepare for some major changes, especially since Aries rules the self. It is war. It is fire. It is individuals that are taking charge. So we have a very interesting month of March upcoming. And so again, stay tuned, subscribe, and make sure to come back and pay attention. I post these typically every week, and there's also tarot card messages that will come out as well. So check out all the freebies I have to help you navigate some very tricky weather ahead. But with that, let's kick off on Monday. And so if you're looking at this chart, it's from Astro Gold, and you'll see that we have the sun in Aquarius at 29 degrees. Anytime we have a planet sit at 29 degrees, whether it's in our natal charts or it's by transit, the work there becomes much more intense. Now, of course, the sun moves through the 29 degree of every sign 1 day per month. And as it sits here in Aquarius, I always like to say this is a test, right? What have you learned over the past month, and how are you applying your learning? Aquarius is about being innovative, about breaking free, but it's also about friend groups, networking, the internet. This is ruled by the planet Uranus, which is slowly moving forward again in the sign of Taurus. And so we have an opportunity to look at things like Bitcoin, right? Alternative forms of money, because of the fact that Uranus is in the sign of Taurus. So there may be a test of some kind. You might want to pay attention to where you have the sun in Aquarius in your chart and see if you notice some intensity going on as a result of that connection. And then you'll also see, speaking of connections, that the moon will also be in an air sign in Libra, and it will be speaking in harmony with the sun as it finishes its time here. And so when we think about the moon, our emotional self, what we need to feel safe and secure in Libra, the sun shines a light on that. Libra is justice. It is law. It is relationships, commitments, contracts. So there's something that could be an opportunity for you on Monday, because whenever we see a trine, that's something that is there to help and support us, but it doesn't just support us if we don't take action. So there may be something that you need to do, right, as a result of this test, or this may be the test that will show up for you on Monday. On Tuesday, of course, now we have the sun ingress, which is moving into the sign of Pisces. And so now we've got the sun in Pisces, we've got Mercury in Pisces, Saturn still in Pisces, the North Node, and Neptune. So that's a lot of Piscean energy. Now, Pisces is the last sign, right? So it can have a lot to do with endings. It has to do with deception. It can be about our dreams. These are all things that are hidden beneath the surface. Now, it can be our artistic talent. It can be music, right? Music is something that exists, but you don't really see music besides the written notes. You don't see music, right? But it exists. We hear it. We feel it. And that's the energy of Pisces, right? It can be about healing and medicine. So all of these types of topics are being highlighted because the sun is moving through here for the next month. And as I mentioned, this is the area where we're going to see Venus come back to do some of her retrograde work, and we'll also see Mercury move forward as it hits around 25 degrees. That's going to be its what we call pre-shadow phase, and then it too will move into Aries. And then from Aries is where we see it turn retrograde. And I mentioned this in my 2025 video. If you haven't watched that, I will include the link. And I had stated how these retrogrades are very unique and different, right? As I mentioned, because of the fact that they're happening together, and there's an eclipse that's part of this work. And retrograde's about going within and reconsidering what you've been seeing, right? So Venus is almost to the point. March 1st, she will go retrograde. And in a couple days, she's going to cross over the eclipse point. In fact, I think it's tomorrow. And so we're going to talk about that as we look forward. A lot of activity this week we're going to talk about involves the moon, because there's not a lot of other interplanetary work going on. So as the moon moves into Scorpio, now it's having a conversation, again, a trine with Mercury, information, both in water signs. So there is something that your intuition is trying to guide you towards. Your feelings are important to pay attention to. The moon doesn't love its time in Scorpio. It's just so dark and intense, but we still need to see the truth, and we may need to act on something that we're being shown at this time. The other thing that is happening here with Venus in Aries, as I mentioned earlier, almost at the eclipse point that happens March 29th, is making an odd angle back to, again, that moon in Scorpio. So something to do with the things that we love and we value, and our security as individuals, we're being challenged in some way. So watch for that. In conjuncts always mean it's difficult for the energies to figure each other out and how to get along. All right. Moving ahead, we're going to talk about Wednesday. And on Wednesday, just briefly, we'll have what's called a grand water trine. And that's when you have 3 planets speaking in harmony with one another. And as they do, they create an opportunity. So, of course, the moon moves the fastest. And as it does, it's going to make a positive angle with Mars in Cancer, still retrograde, almost done though. And oh boy, this is going to be great to not have Mars be retrograde anymore. And it speaks in harmony with Saturn. All 3 of them in a water sign together create an opportunity. But again, as I've mentioned, trines are things that are offered to us, but we have to take advantage of them. So Mars in retrograde is something we're taking advantage of that's related to the past, that has to do with care and nurturing, family, women, right? All topics associated with this Cancer energy combined with Mars. Now, Mars isn't happy there. None of us, I don't think, have been very happy while Mars has been retrograde in what feels like forever land. So as this will begin to slow this week and get ready to move forward, the things, again, that have been going on behind the scenes, beneath the surface, they're going to come up, and we're going to have to do something with the information and about the information. There is something with Chiron and the moon. So Chiron are wounds. Chiron, the teacher, the coach, right? Trainer of the gods. And our feelings are not coordinating very well. Feelings could get hurt for some reason on Wednesday, the 19th. So just beware. But I think the answer to whatever that is happens in this trine area. How are you going to respond? What do you need to do? And then this is the day where Venus will cross to the 9 degrees, and it's exactly at 9 degrees, which again, I'm always fascinated by the astrology. It's why I keep doing it. But you have a 9-degree eclipse that happens, and I'm just going to show you that when we have Venus at 9 degrees. It's rare, right, to have an eclipse that's going to hit exactly at 9 degrees. But that is what will be happening. And so I'm suggesting that on Wednesday, we pay close attention to whatever's going on in our lives and what is showing up, because it could be a preview of what the eclipse work will be for you. Now, it will be, of course, the sun and the moon coming together to create the eclipse, but that new beginning will not happen until we learn to let go what is no longer a part of our future, right? Of our fated line. So Venus, what we love about ourselves, right? Our individual passions. There's something that we're being shown, and make a note of it. Maybe it's a dream. Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's an email you get that day. But there's something, I think, that Venus is going to show us. And then, of course, on March 1st, Venus is going to go retrograde just past this point. And so she's immediately coming back over it. So we can look at it again. And then, of course, we'll have the eclipse, and then we'll see Venus and Mercury marching hand in hand for some time. So there's something about, it could be women, leadership, women in leadership roles, and Mercury is younger, right? It could be youth that have something to do with all these Pisces energy, music. There's just something about them working together, and a new perspective, right? A new, different way of thinking. So lots to come on that. But just as I mentioned, pay attention on Wednesday to that grand water trine, and then Venus transiting over the upcoming eclipse point. Something important for sure. As we move into Thursday, we've got more of a difficult conversation going on between Mercury and Jupiter. And keep in mind, Mercury rules Gemini, where Jupiter is traveling, and Jupiter is one of the known rulers for Pisces. In fact, before Neptune was identified, we considered Jupiter to be the ruler of Pisces. So there's some symbiotic, right, kind of exchange going on where each of these planets has a different perspective, right, than the owner of the house does. And so there's some kind of a conflict where we need to adopt a different mindset. And this is a combination of faith, Pisces, and our mind, right? Just the things that we think are not in alignment with actual spirit and real faith. So there is some kind of a conflict that is showing up on Thursday that could create tension and a need for there to be change. And we'll also see that same kind of tension happening between the moon and the sun. So they're going to square in the morning as well. But as Venus is making her way through that eclipse point, she's going to also be speaking in harmony with the moon. So you just have got to pay attention to your intuition and to those downloads that are coming in, because there is work to be done, blocks to be removed, things we need to let go of. And we want to be in tune to what those are. Now, the last time we had this eclipse was 2006. Mercury was nearby. Mercury will be conjunct with the sun and the moon. But these retrogrades that are going on, that was not a part of what was happening in 2006. So there is something more added to this eclipse. But it's good to look back at that year as a reference point. You know, you've had a 19-year cycle since then. What's it been about? What do you not want to repeat? Or maybe what do you want to repeat? Take a close look at that on Thursday as well. And then as we move into Friday, again, I mentioned we're just talking a lot more about the moon this week because there just isn't a lot of other activity going on. It's a great exercise to journal with the moon and see, how do you react emotionally depending on where the moon is? And is that because of just the moon's placement, or is it because of how it interacts with your own moon sign? So for instance, if you are a moon in Sagittarius person, you may feel great when the moon is here and it's speaking in harmony with Chiron. Chiron's helping us heal our feelings, our emotions in some way, heal our insecurities is a possibility when it's working in harmony with the moon. And there also could be foreign people, right, working together across countries, healing some rift. That's definitely a possibility. And there's also this square to Saturn. So, right, this is a warm, loving family that is in conflict with a specific ruler, for instance, is just one of the ways that you could see that. And so changes have to be made in order for these two to get along. All right, that is Friday. The other thing that'll happen throughout the day with Mercury also being close to Saturn now is that, again, there can be conflicts. There can be arguments. There's this new person who's trying to do and change things, and it's just not being accepted by those who are in other countries. All right, let me just take a quick peek at Saturday. Here we will see Mercury, as I mentioned, getting closer to Saturn, and it is speaking in harmony with that Mars energy, which is real slow right now as it gets ready to turn the corner. And whenever a planet is getting ready to end its retrograde, that means that's pushing out a lot of energy. So I expect the weekend to be a very emotional one. And with Mercury ruling communication, transportation, our communities, their, community groups may be feeling inspired to take some kind of action. Same thing with spiritual groups. Now, Mars, is a warrior. So there may be groups that are banding together in not helpful ways, right? This can be attacks that we need to be careful about. A trine is energy that's just available. It doesn't really matter if it's in the light or the dark. It's just available. So I recommend, of course, in your own life that you do something positive with this emotional energy and use it to take a look at and come up with a plan for how you want things to look differently once this Mars energy, wherever it's at in your chart, starts to move ahead. So you may have some inspirational ideas that show up because of Mercury. And sometimes if you need inspiration, you can work with the element that Mercury's in, which now Pisces is water. Make sure you drink enough water, Epsom baths, Epsom salt baths, even a foot soak, right? All those things can help dry out negative energy and then let the light in, and that light of inspiration in specifically. All right. Then we wrap up the weekend with just that strong conversation still in place between Mercury and Mars. And as I mentioned, Mars is now going direct. Ooh. This has been a long and painful retrograde, I think. So now, though, we see, Mars wants to get things done. It wants to move forward, move on. This is Cancer themes, homes, our ancestors, our foundations, right? This is women. So there is women who speak up and have a voice. All kinds of things that are going on as Mars starts moving forward. And today it has that confrontation again with the moon, which is the ruler of Cancer. So again, the moon says, hey, that's not how I want my guests to behave in my home. And Mars says, I don't care. And that's where the conflict ensues. So this is, of course, the moon in Capricorn, which Mars appreciates the Capricorn, hard work. It doesn't want to be restricted, though, by the government. So there is definitely a conflict that could involve the government, and it could be a bit emotional. All right. So that is the week. As I mentioned, we're focused a lot on the energy going on with the moon and our emotions this week. And then as we move into next week, as I mentioned, Mars is going to be moving forward. And this whole week, we'll see Venus slowly moving forward. And then she will start her retrograde on the 1st. Also going to see this connection between Mercury and Saturn become strong, especially here at the beginning of the week. And this is strong words, right? This is Saturn who has a plan. Now, maybe in the positive area, that is some kind of a peace plan that comes together. Definitely authority figures that are planning something is a possibility at this time. So that is what we have to focus on. And then we're also going to see that we're going to have the new moon in Pisces. And so that is going to come up on Thursday. And as you can see here, it is squaring to Jupiter, which is finally off the 11-degree point that it has been sitting at as it ended its retrograde and very slowly moved forward. So there is something changing as a result of this new beginning that we have in the sign of Pisces. So you'll definitely want to come back next week. Of course, we'll do the breakdown by sign. And I always recommend when we have a new moon that's under duress, right? Which is a bit stressed out. Even though Jupiter's a benefic planet, it doesn't make the square easy, but it does give you the information you need to make the changes that are necessary. So when you make your new moon wishes on next Thursday, you'll want to incorporate something that you want to change in order for your new beginning to come in. And of course, that change has to be associated with the 2 houses that this is happening in order for this to take effect for you. All right. That is the week. As I mentioned, it's kind of quick, and I apologize again for my snotty sounding nose and not being on the screen to talk to you directly, but this cold is on its way out. I'm positive. So next week I'll be back. Like I mentioned, we'll break all this down. But if you want to book a session ahead of time to make sure you're ready for these big changes, this big eclipse, these retrogrades, definitely go out to my website, maraleeburnett.com. Book a session with me and we will break it down for your chart specifically. All right, guys, I will talk with you again next week. Make sure you check in on my dailies as well, where I post a tarot card and give you a little mini astro lesson every day so that you know what to expect. All right, guys, take care and we'll talk next week. Be sure and check out your weekly tarot card messages as well. Those, along with this astro lesson, are going to give you the big picture. Thanks again for tuning in. Talk to you next week.